So, president of Android, senior guy at Google. You may have heard of a company called Apple nearby your headquarters. So next week they're going to attempt to fix Siri, finally after 15 years, by changing, sort of opening the hood and taking your stuff, Gemini, and just jamming it in there. What do you think of Apple using your technology to power their AI?
It's a hell of a way to start, Mark. Hello, it's nice to be here. Nice to see all of you. Actually, as Mark said, I run Android at Google, the Android ecosystem. So to be honest, I'm the last one at Google to know what Apple is going to do with anything Google. In fact, most of what I know about it comes from your reporting, to be honest. But look, I think that every company is working on their next iteration of what their intelligence will be. I think we've been at it for a while with Android. We recently announced Gemini Intelligence, but before that, we've had Gemini on Android devices since 2024, and we've been scaling it now to TVs and watches and cars, and the reaction's been awesome. There are hundreds of millions of Gemini users every day on Android, and I think it's going quite well.
I just noticed you're wearing the Fitbit Air, Steph Curry edition. I'm actually wearing one too. And if you guys aren't familiar, this is not an ad, this is part of the question. This thing is awesome. It's like this new screenless fitness tracker, $100. It's like a Whoop, but made by Google.
Yeah.
But it's a screenless device.
Yeah.
And one day, could this become like an ambient AI device with a microphone? Do you think devices are going to evolve pretty quickly into this sort of screenless type of environment?
Yeah, I think devices are evolving pretty quickly already. I don't know about ambient recording and what have you. I think there's a lot of privacy concerns and things like that with that. But I do think screens are. It's obviously very important still. One of the things that people get wrong, I think, about this new sort of agentic era of AI is that there's going to be an app apocalypse, as some people are. Sometimes I refer to it, where all the apps go away and there's no screens and you just kind of say things. I definitely think apps of certain kind will change, but at the same time, if you really look at the data, 70% of the time plus on our phones, what are we doing? Well, we're watching YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or chatting with friends or playing games or these kinds of things. So these are experiences, and I think those remain. I think a screen in your life to do those things will be important. I think there's expansionary opportunities. I think fitness bands is one area. There are many other devices people are experimenting with. As we've announced, we're working on a pair of glasses. I've been using the Warby Parker version of the glasses. I got a talking to about showing them publicly, so I'll put them back in.
And I'll have more questions about that.
I'll put them back in my jacket pocket for now. But I think these are important devices to be working with because, especially with AI, it opens up a number of new capabilities, and we're super excited about all of that.
So the big thing, and if some people here aren't familiar, is Google announced a few weeks ago that you're moving from this classic operating system to what you call an intelligence system, and basically recreating Android for the AI era. What does that look like? Like starting in the fall when this thing is rolling out more widely and next year to more devices, what is a phone user's day going to look like versus how it looks today? Because today, you download apps, you go to your home screen, you launch apps, you move to your browser, you move to your TikTok, whatever. What is using a phone going to feel like in 6 months from now?
I think it's going to be a hybrid of that and some new capabilities. So the way I think about it and the way we talk about it is we have an operating system, and we're moving from an operating system to an intelligence system. What does that mean? I think if you look at the last 40 years of computing, it's primarily been set up to make the user the micromanager of the system. Okay, so you are literally conceiving of what you're trying to get done. You are then converting that in your head to clicks and taps and various other things that you need to get done. Menus are just organized things you can click or tap on, and you are essentially micromanaging these machines, which is fine and has worked for us pretty well. But with this new capability, with this new technology, the opportunity is to really rebuild things from the ground up to focus more on capturing what is your intention. What is your goal? What is that goal in your mind that you're converting into all these taps and swipes and what have you? And then get that done for you in a much more seamless and automated way. And so, I gave this example recently where I was planning a barbecue, and I have a list of, as one does, make a list of who's coming and whether they're vegetarian or not, and how many people are they bringing in their party. And then I asked Gemini to look at the list and go to my favorite grocery shopping app, which happens to be Instacart, and add what I will need for this barbecue to my cart. And that is more capturing my intention. What am I doing? What am I trying to do? And then taking the steps for me. And that's what we mean by this transition to an intelligent system.
When is this going to be real? Like, obviously, I've played with it, I see it, but when is the mass consumer going to start being able to experience this?
Well, we released a preview of this already on of task automation, of app automation, already on the Samsung Galaxy S26 devices and Pixel devices. We will do even more this summer. And we have a number of capabilities we just announced at Google I/O in the last couple of weeks that are rolling out over the summer. Can I tell you one of my favorites that's coming?
If you want.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah. So one of my favorites is
I've got nowhere to be.
Yeah, you've got nowhere to be. One of my favorites is redoing input. So like the keyboard hasn't really fundamentally changed in a very, very long time. The keyboard is the perfect encapsulation of micromanagement. Like literally, you think of how to say something, what you want to say, how to say it, pick the words, and then tap the specific thing. It's like really, you're doing a lot of work there, And the last thing we all added to the keyboard that was kind of profound improvement was swipe or autocomplete, which is like so 2010, And so I feel what we're doing now is we have this feature coming to the keyboard called Rambler.
The best name.
Named by some of our engineering team, as we do at Google sometimes. And Rambler is a simple concept. It's when you hold down this new microphone button, instead of doing dictation, where you get all the ums and the ahs, and it faithfully records everything you're saying, you do a brain dump of what you're trying to convey. And then it will figure out, in your own tone of voice with some authenticity, how to frame what you're really trying to say in a nice way that you would actually text somebody, right? And I've been using it, and it's awesome. We get hundreds of millions of uses of the microphone on the keyboard every day. And my kids, this is like the only way that they type, is to use the microphone. So I think it's going to be a big change. I'm super excited about it. That's a very practical way you make a system much more intelligent.
I'm not going to ask you if the phone is going away, because I think we both agree it's not going away. But in 5 years from now, what is sort of the advanced consumer tech user, smartphone user? What is their tech setup? What are they leaving the house with? What does that look like?
That's a great question. I do think the phone with a different interface will continue for all the reasons that we talked about. I am a big wearables person, as you can probably tell. I'm wearing a lot of wearables. Yeah, you're doing a good job.
3 of them.
I do think the exciting thing about AI with wearables is less about form factor, honestly, and is more about how we take the data and actually start to really provide more useful insights. That's the real breakthrough, in my opinion, around this. And so I do think there will be more people who have a wearable of some kind on for health reasons. I think that will be a big deal. And I think some people will add a pair of glasses as well. I don't know that they'll be for everybody, because not everybody likes the form factor of glasses. But I think what will convince a number of folks is when you have the ability to have something like Gemini or another AI agent of your choice, being able to, with your permission, see the world the way you see it, and give you help in that moment, can be pretty useful. Like look at a set of IKEA instructions and then turn and look at all the pieces on the ground and say, okay, how do I do this? Like that's pretty useful. So I think that will be a lot of people's setup.
So the smart glasses you have in your pocket, the smart glasses we're going to see over the next few years, obviously those are display free, and you're relying on the cameras and voice input and voice speakers and whatnot for AI. When do you think you're going to see serious implementations of AR and displays? Like how far away are we from that? Because when you previewed Google XR, those are one of the things you talked about, but that seems pretty out there.
Let's say there's a spectrum of technology, right, in the AR and the VR space. When you think about the VR side of the spectrum, you have heavy headsets that we all know today that you kind of wear and maybe you can tolerate them for some small period of time. I think those are changing rapidly, becoming much lighter weight. There's a project I would have you all take a look at from a company called Xreal, and they've talked about it publicly. It's called Aura, A-U-R-A, and it's basically a pair of what look like sunglasses. They're not glasses you'd wear out and about. It's more taking the headset technology and reducing it down to the form factor of something that you could wear comfortably all day. I think the VR space will advance with that. I think for out and about, the first step is audio glasses, where you'll hear you have a microphone or speakers that fire directly into your ears. No one else around you can hear what's going on, but you can ask for help or you can get assistance from your AI agent. And then next year, I think you'll start to see much more prevalence of glasses with a small display in them. And that's great for walking navigation or showing you the recent message that you received, or various different glanceable style pieces of information. And it will continue to advance from there.
What do you think that market's going to look like in terms of the key players? Like right now, obviously, for phones, well, let's take a step back. Computers was Mac OS and Windows, the two big ones. Then you had the phone evolution. It's Android and iOS. What is the pie going to look like when it comes to XR? Do you think it's going to be Apple and Google? How big do you think Meta is going to be part of that? Who are the big winners?
It's too early to tell. I think it's very first inning. I think everyone is investing and building new experiences. I think that the new part of this puzzle, though, that's also going to be very exciting is, this is a consumer electronic device, but it's also fashion. Like you need to want to wear it first and foremost. It can't be something that you look at and say, okay, well, I really don't want that on my face, And so there are eyewear companies that we're partnered with, for example, Warby Parker, Gentle Monster, and that's really important, So that design element of it, I think, is a difference from traditional tech. And so I think the pie might look very different than what we're used to in the tech space.
Okay, another phone category or another device category, foldable phones. I know you use one.
Yeah.
I think that market's going to just explode, especially with Apple getting into it. What are the advantages you're seeing with foldable phones, and do you agree? Do you think more Android phone makers are going to move in this direction, and is it going to win out?
I think almost every major Android manufacturer that builds a premium smartphone device now has a foldable in their lineup. I use a foldable as my primary work device. As you know, we've talked about this before. I'm rocking usually like 6 different phones at a time, but that's because I have a weird job, which makes me do that. But if you really ask me, like, which one would I use for work? And I know a lot of folks in the audience have busy jobs. Like, I would strongly recommend trying out a foldable. The Samsung Fold 7 or the Pixel Fold are two that you can grab. These are productivity beasts. For video conference, for looking at slideshows, for doing anything. I use my laptop at work, I'd say 50% less. With a foldable device, and it's great if you're on the go. So I'm a believer. I'm a big believer, and we've been working on the multitasking capabilities with the Fold for a long time, and the category is growing already very rapidly.
Speaking of laptops, you're getting back into laptops in a huge way. Chrome OS and Android coming together, this string of Android laptops. You've seen a lot of different companies now. Dell just launched a cheaper laptop. Apple obviously just launched a cheaper laptop. Why are we getting back into laptops? Why are they sort of having a resurgence? Is it because of AI, more powerful chips? What's going on?
I think there's a number of reasons. The laptop form factor, and this is an interesting evolution, right? Like we always think that the new form factor will kill the old form factor. And actually, I think what tends to happen is we're still in this period of tech where it's expansionary, and you see that actually laptops continue to grow despite mobile, and I think even with new AI devices, all the previous will continue to grow as well. Laptops are very interesting, especially with AI. Your ability to use that real estate now and get far more done is important. We announced something called the Google Book, which is a combination of everything we've learned from Chrome OS and the Android operating system together. And the Google Books will be made by many different manufacturers, HP, Lenovo, Dell. There's many that have already announced that they're building this. They will come out in the fall. And we think it is a real opportunity to bring innovation back to the laptop from the standpoint of what you can do with AI, especially with the agentic capabilities. We had one example that we demoed, which was to actually make the cursor, the mouse cursor, a part of that agentic experience, where I don't know if any of you have had this situation where you wanted to show how you would redecorate a room, and you have like 7 different browser tabs, and you have 7 different pictures and 7 different browser tabs open. You want to put it in your chatbot of choice, and you want to ask it to like imagine this room for you. What do you have to do? You have to go download every photo, and you have to go upload every photo, you know. And so what if the cursor, with a quick wiggle of the cursor, could just become that selection tool, and you just click on any photo or circle something or whatever, and it all becomes context for the next query you're going to ask. These are simple things when you see them, but actually they make a huge difference for lowering the friction to bring context into these systems that depend on that to give you amazing answers. And that is what an intelligence system and the future of operating systems should be, is lowering that friction.
So just taking a step back here, final question. I think you have probably the coolest job in tech, because you are the chief decision maker and chief of all operating system, or the operating system powering much of the world's devices, the phones, computers, glasses, everything now. Big responsibility. But I'm sure, at least I'm curious, a lot of people are curious, what does your day look like? Like, what do you do all day? How do you, I don't mean it like that, but
what do you do all
like,
day?
What is the 18 to 16 hours a day for you look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just like many of you, many folks here, you have super busy jobs, and I think one of the challenges is we have context switches, right? As you get maybe in a different position in an organization, you're, one minute you're talking about for me, it's, how are we going to change memory management in the operating system, which has profound implications for everything. Next, I'm meeting with a regulator. Next, I'm talking about our P&L with our CFO. It's a lot of context shifts. I would say the biggest thing that I've learned about this and how I try to structure my day is that if I just respond to the inbound, I will go over an entire quarter and I will look back and say, okay, I was furiously active, but I don't know that I made a lot of progress. So I do something every quarter called a calendar cleanse, which basically means I make a list of the things that are most important that I spend my time on, which is subtly different, by the way, from the things that are most important in the organization. Some of the things that are most important in the organization don't necessarily require my time, but I make a list of the things that I need to spend my time on. And then the typical approach I used to take is you go to your calendar and you're like, I will find space for these things. Okay, this does not work, at least not for me. I work with my administrative business partner, who's here somewhere, Sonia, who hates this process, by the way, and we delete the entire calendar. We just delete it. And we rebuild it with the things that I need to spend my time on. And then whatever's left at the end, whatever spare time we have, that we use for the inbound. And so that's like my day is, I try to be very intentful and very purposeful about how to spend time, because otherwise we just don't move the ball down the field.
I was just thinking, you might be the one guy that AI has made your life busier, right? Because you're developing the tools to save everyone else time with AI, but that clearly makes you more busy because you have a lot more to develop now, right?
I think it's an interesting thing. People who really lean into AI a lot, I've heard they actually feel more busy than ever, which is an interesting thing I think we need to look at more, right? It's like, is it because you're getting more done? Is it because, what is it about it? But I think there's something about that.